Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
This is A Different Perspective with Kevin Randle. A retired U.S. Lieutenant Colonel, Kevin Randle has been studying UFOs for nearly 50 years. Kevin has investigated some of the most famous UFO cases in the world and has been consulted for dozens of documentaries about UFOs. Considered one of the leading experts into the Roswell UFO crash of 1947, Kevin has written more than 25 books about UFOs, including the recently published Roswell in the 21st Century. Now, here is the host of A Different Perspective, Kevin Randle.
This is A Different Perspective, and I am, in fact, Kevin Randle. I'll be joined with my guest in just a moment. Wanted to make a couple of comments. By listening to the program, you'll learn that I'm not talking to Don Schmitt today. We got caught up in the activities of the UFO field, and I have asked Stephen Bassett to join me again, even though he was on just a couple of weeks ago. We're going to talk about Unidentified and some of those things. So we're delaying the interview with Don Schmitt for just a week. Also, I just wanted to mention this Area 51 attack nonsense and remind anybody who's listening that the use of deadly force is authorized. I think it's more of a joke than actual attempt to breach the perimeter of Area 51, but it's just one of those dumb ideas that I think makes us all look bad, makes the whole UFO community look bad, because it looks like that's the kind of nonsense we embrace. So I thought I would just mention that. As I said, I'm going to be joined here by Stephen Bassett, and I'm not going to read his massively long introduction again, other than to say he is the executive director of the Paradigm Research Group, and his website is www.paradigmresearchgroup.org. And as you all know, he's been on lots and lots of programs. He's done lots of television, and he has been one of the driving forces behind the idea of disclosure. So we'll get into all of that in just a second. Stephen Bassett, welcome once again to A Different Perspective.
Hi, Kevin. It's great to be with you as always.
You know, it's fun talking to you, so I really don't mind having you on so frequently.
Well, I prefer that my hosts have fun talking to me. I think that's an ideal outcome.
I'm kind of making fun of that because I have, like 52 shows I do a year, and I try to spread the guests out. But things have gotten in the way, and I think you're the guy to talk to about some of this.
Sure. No, there's a lot happening, and it's intensifying. It's going to continue to intensify.
Moving closer to disclosure?
Yes, though it's difficult to completely chart the future path. We are moving along that path, and I think we have gotten closer, but it's complicated. It's not like just running a simple race where every step takes you one closer to the finish line.
Is the Area 51 nonsense that I mentioned earlier, is that having any negative impact that you can see?
No, that's not going to have negative impact. I have a different take on that. Let's look at it from a bigger picture perspective. The interest in this phenomena has been growing for 70 years. If growing means the total number of people that are aware of it, to one degree or another, aware of an ET concept, extraterrestrial idea, and all of that. The numbers are huge now, hundreds of millions, if not 1 billion, 2 billion people. So the awareness is great. The truth embargo is in its roughly 72nd year, and that it's kept a lid on the public's interest, trying to contain it. So it's not natural that as we start to get closer to taking that lid off, the level of interest and excitement and energy is going to grow. So this little joke, and that's what it was, give the guy credit. He came up with a cool idea. Actually, I thought of this years ago, but it wasn't a mass march. I thought about, what if we got 100 people to drive to Vegas and we went out, say, around 2 p.m, and we just 100 cars just in a line and just drove right through the gate. But, of course, I did not promote that. So he's come up with this idea, but what has happened, what we've seen is the number of people that have signed up for it. Think of it as a petition. This is the number of people willing to actually sign up for something like this, knowing they're not going to go, but to make a statement that they're aware of Area 51, they're aware of the issues surrounding it, they're tired of being lied to by the government, they're tired of being treated by children, and so they're making a little statement there. So I look at it as a petition and a reflection of the level of interest. Now, I have put out a Facebook post, I think, where I say that it would be a very bad idea for anybody to show up, particularly in the middle of the night, right, 3 a.m. to 6 a.m., and enter the base.
Attempt to enter the base.
Or attempt to enter the. Well, actually, you can get, the way they have it set up, you can get past into the actual area because they don't have, there's no wall down there, but then you're met by the camo boys. But the point is that it would be a bad idea. But I have a hunch some people are going to show up.
Let me interrupt right here because you mentioned camo boys.
Yeah. And
I'm afraid the audience may not know that you're referring to the security guards on the base. They dress in camouflage, and we call them camo boys.
That's right. And their job is to keep people from getting into the base. So I think some people will show up. They'll have a little party outside the area and maybe do a little barbecue. Hopefully the inside guys will not make a big deal out of that, and they won't get heavy-handed, and they'll keep their distance. But that's what I think will happen. Now, let me make it clear. If for some reason, and we're talking about 1 million plus people have signed up, if even 5,000 people decided that was a good idea and they went out there and they tried to enter the base, that would be a very big mistake. And it would, if anything awful comes from that, it would definitely be a problem for the disclosure process and the disclosure activist movement. Because, and one thing for sure, any violence would just be absolutely unacceptable. One of the most significant things about the disclosure movement, the effort to get the truth out on this, which goes all the way back to the 40s, believe it or not, is that, to my knowledge, not a single act of violence has ever been conducted by somebody on the side. In other words, somebody that's the civilians pressing to get information from the government. It has been an absolutely nonviolent movement, though it's been slow and taken a long time. I don't want that to change on the 20th.
I think our political atmosphere today, I mean, all of it is just reeking of violence, and everybody has just gone nuts. We've lost our civility. And if the 5,000 people showed up and it was a peaceful rally, a nice barbecue, and the camo boys didn't go nuts, and everybody went home and went on, that would be the best outcome, I think.
Also, notice how much the news covered it. The
Yes.
press, been a lot of articles of this. So again, the press, by the way, is a lot more understanding of the ET reality and the truth embargo than people would know. That understanding doesn't necessarily reflect in the way they decide to cover it or not. But they're very aware of what's going on.
And the Air Force response, putting out statements as well, is kind of interesting because normally they just ignore that sort of thing.
But So it's a reflection of the times. But in terms of the violence you talk about, I was a young man, literally college, during the beginning of the ramp up of the Vietnam War, and there was an awful lot of violence back then, and in some ways it was a lot worse than now. But we're more sensitive to violence now. We're more aware of it. We can report it very quickly. So it's not that we haven't been through times like this, but this has its own unique characteristics, this era, and these things have to be addressed in an appropriate way. We'll see what happens.
The violence, would you say, tend to hinder some of the disclosure?
Absolutely. Any violence on the part of and the part of people that are seeking the truth on this matter. The disclosure movement, you could call it, which we will include anybody that shows up at Area 51. They want the truth. They're part of the disclosure movement, whether they like it or not. Any violence on their part would break a near perfect track, essentially a perfect track record for 70 years. That would be a bad thing. And so let us hope that they're wise enough to not let that happen. But there's no supervision here. Remember, this is a joke. Million person gatherings and marches have been done before, particularly in Washington, where such a march should take place. If people want to gather 1 million strong to protest the truth embargo, the place is the mall in Washington, D.C. But those things don't just happen spontaneously. There's a huge amount of organization. A great deal of money is spent in order to make them work. If 1 million people just showed up for something, I assure you it would go very badly.
And they'd probably run out of food and gas.
And porta potties.
And porta potty, yes. The essential part of a protest, the porta potties.
Exactly. The most essential, frankly.
Yes, absolutely. Because everything could, well, never mind. We won't go there.
Yeah, we don't need to go there.
Yeah, we don't need to go there. I am joined by Stephen Bassett, he of the Paradigm Research Group.org. We'll be back in a moment. I would advise you all to take a look at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com because as we get into the next segment and start talking about the program Unidentified, especially episode 6, there's a lot that has been written about that by Stephen, by Rich Reynolds and others that was not favorable to that last episode. And I'll link some of that and bring some of that forward on the blog so it'll help you get a better idea of, I guess, everything that's going on in relation to that program. Also, take a look at Roswell in the 21st century. And I mention that simply because I was just down in Roswell, and I got some interesting feedback on that book, and I thought it was actually kind of interesting and kind of nice. Some of the people said about the book, and they enjoyed the attempt to put the Roswell case in its proper perspective, and which is what we do on A Different Perspective. So I will be back right after this with Stephen Bassett, and we will talk about Unidentified, so stick around.
It's hard to listen to the news without realizing we're living in volatile, unprecedented times. Yet never has there been such an opportunity to transform the human condition. As old structures fail, where can we find the guidance to co-create a better way? Find Your Path Home is an ever-evolving, leading-edge information, education, and healing resource center designed to support and guide you on your path to unity and enlightenment. Based on sound principles employed by shaman worldwide, we provide techniques that can support you through the current transitions, offering online shamanic classes, international long-distance shamanic healing sessions, complimentary Mission Evolution radio episodes and Stairway to Heaven TV vignettes, seminars, retreats, and much more. All of this can be found on findyourpathhome.com.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me. simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
I am joined by Stephen Bassett, he of the Paradigm Research Organization, a group dedicated to full disclosure of what the government holds in the way of UFOs and that sort of thing. We were talking a little bit about the attack on Area 51, which is probably a joke and probably not a lot of people will show up, but maybe some will. But the reason I wanted to have Steve on the show again was he had caught me a little bit by surprise. I was in Roswell, so I didn't get to see the final episode of Unidentified. But I understood from colleagues and friends that it wasn't maybe the best episode, and it was a little bit off the rails. And Stephen, you had posted something not long after it that suggested you weren't really thrilled with it either. Can you give me a little bit of detail on that?
This is a little complicated, so you're going to have to bear with me on this. Let me preface my comments about the To the Stars Academy circa that episode. In other words, the entire, I guess you'd say, history of it leading up to that episode. Over a lot of in the modern era, let's go back. We'll stay within the internet era, where the World Wide Web was functional, the internet was up. There have been a number of things which have turned up in the news, turned up in the public domain that were extremely disturbing, dealing with stuff the government's up to and what's going on. And by and large, there was almost no engagement by the public and very little coverage, not that much coverage by the media. I can give you two classic examples of this. Right around the turn of the century, right in that 2000 period, I can't remember the exact dates, there was a story that emerged regarding the Echelon program. The Echelon program was a spy satellite system that was being operated by a number of countries. And what was learned was that the UK and the United States were swapping data because it was illegal to use that system to spy on their own people. And so what was going on is the UK was spying on us and then giving it to us, and then we were spying on them and in the UK and giving it to the UK people. And this revealed for the first time really the extent of the satellite surveillance they had, sucking up virtually every phone call in the world and so forth. And, of course, the violation of the law. Well, it got some coverage.
Let me interrupt here because there was something called Project Shamrock, I think, where the international telegraph or telephone services were being monitored by the government as well, but this goes back before the internet. Is this an outgrowth of that?
But no, I don't know if it's an outgrowth. But this idea of increased surveillance and so forth has been a thread that we've been dealing with and looking at and responding to. I'm just referring to this one instance that occurred definitely at a time when we had the internet. There was no engagement by the public. There was very little coverage, and then it just disappeared. Right? It emerged. The concept emerged again with the Snowden the document dump, which did create quite a bit of news and some engagement by the public, including a documentary and other things. So that was a little bit more of an engagement. And here's another example. Around the same time, could have been just after the 2000 or maybe before 1999, an article turned up in the Washington Post mentioning that the Air Force was doing research on antimatter weapons. And I commented on this at the time, wrote some stuff out. They didn't have that much people paying attention to what I was doing. And what can I say? There was virtually no coverage, no follow-up. And the public didn't engage it. There was no reaction, really, even though the implications were staggering, absolutely staggering. The vast majority of people have no idea what antimatter is or the implications of antimatter. But those who do, and I'm sure that includes a lot of journalists in Washington, know that antimatter would be the absolute ultimate weapon, the most powerful weapon that humans could possibly create. For the simple reason that if you can isolate antimatter particles so that you can keep them apart from any standard matter particles, find some way to do that, which would be the core of that research. And thus, at some point, whatever the containment is, and this was in the movie, the Angels and Demons, whatever, one of the movies by Brown's books, and then that containment is broken, and that antimatter comes together with regular matter. The entire matter is both sides is converted to energy. An antimatter bomb the size of, say, Little Boy would have blown up probably all of Japan and a good chunk of China. And so they're doing that research, no big deal. Now, let's bring it forward. The ET engagement by the national security state, the disclosure maneuver by the national security state, which has come to be known to the Stars Academy of Arts and Science, is a major deal with huge implications. But in this case, the public has had 70 years of subsequent awareness. Scores of thousands of articles have been written in that time. Documentaries, movies, books, you name it. The public has been heavily educated on this subject, a significant portion of the public. And, of course, the journalism as well. And so when this event took place, and I assume they may have known this, but when they made that maneuver and triggered what we're now seeing over the last 2 years, they had to know that the level of scrutiny on this particular event was going to be massive.
When you say this particular event, you mean the release of the videotapes through the Navy or the whole? The
announcement and the launch of the To the Stars Academy program, right? The revealing of the fact that people within the Pentagon made a decision to create an outside group made up of people not working directly under government anymore, but with substantial government background, security clearances, substantial resumes, and gravitas, to form an entity that was going to publicly state it was seeking to find out the truth about this matter, investigate various avenues of it, even look into anti-gravitic drive, all of this, right? That is the event. Everything that's happened since, including the New York Times articles, the release of gun camera footage, the release of the ATIP program, and all of that, and, of course, the series Unidentified, put together by film that was taken throughout a long period of time as cameras followed these guys around. All of this stems from that event, and this is disclosure stuff. This is definitely disclosure stuff. And so what they, I hope, knew from the beginning was that what they were doing was going to receive a degree of scrutiny that would surpass almost anything else of a similar type. So while the public did not engage and completely forgot about the fact the Air Force is researching antimatter weapons, the ET issue is another matter. And so everything that these gentlemen do, every statement they make, every piece of evidence they reveal, every strategy they pursue is going to be scrutinized not by thousands of people, not by millions of people, but by hundreds of millions of people. And so, and that's the way it is. Is that fair? I think it is. And is it warranted? Absolutely, when you see the implications of this. So, from the beginning, I have supported the TTS, AAS, and everything that it's doing.
That's the To the Stars Academy.
The To the Stars Academy and everything it's doing. The strategies, the revealing of the programs, the news coverage, all of that. Been very strongly supportive, while others have not been. I have read the critiques of it and so forth and found them to be not particularly substantive. So, good thing. But I stated early on that if it started to get into a place or go somewhere that I had great concern about, that I wasn't going to hold back and I was going to talk about it. And the one thing not surprisingly, that was on my mind and the mind of a lot of other people following this was how are the ETs going to be cast in this effort? Now, we learned early on that
by cast, you mean how they're represented, how they're portrayed, not
how they are portrayed, what their intentions are, how we're viewing them, and so forth, which is the essence of all of this. Disclosure is about acknowledging the extraterrestrial presence. This is all about extraterrestrials and, of course, the engagement by us, by them, and how we're going to engage them. I mean, that's what it's all about. The rest is details. Now, very early on, the threat concept emerged. I was not surprised about that. The fact that they ended up calling the program at the Pentagon that started in 2007 into 2012, that Louis Elizondo ran for most of that time, they called it the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, was certainly not surprising. If the Pentagon's going to create a program to satisfy a powerful politician's desires, which in this case was Senator Harry Reid, the House Majority Leader, they're not going to call it the Extraterrestrial Welcoming Board. It's going to have to be cast in a way that is not going to upset others in the Pentagon that want to know what the hell is going on here. So it's and technically, the ETs are always a potential threat. They could have called it the Advanced Aerospace Potential Threat Identification Program. So that was understood. So we noted that. And then we watched to see how things are going to go. And by and large, in terms of interviews with Elizondo, particularly Elizondo, the idea of threat was deminimized. It wasn't too much. Then the Unidentified series begins, which was important because the Unidentified series on History Channel is going to reach a lot of people, a lot of new people, and it was going to solidify and put into a package what these gentlemen are up to and where they're going. So it was very powerful, very important, and it's going to be replayed and replayed and replayed many, many times, I assure you.
Let me stop you here because we're going to have to take a quick break, as we always do around this time. I'm with Stephen Bassett. His group is the Paradigm Research Group.org. For more information on that, look at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com. And when we come back, we're going to find out what was in episode 6 that was so disturbing, what kind of suggested they may have slipped off the rails in their programming, and look at some of the other aspects of disclosure. I'll be here with Stephen Bassett in just a moment, so hang around.
How would your life change if you could develop the business and personal skills that you need in order to make more money? Do you want to learn how to achieve your big life goals faster? Then go to findhiddenmoney.com and get the Goal for It online course. The course teaches you how you can set and achieve your biggest goals while completely overcoming the roadblocks to your goals so that you can realize your dreams and imagine more success. Go to findhiddenmoney.com.
Memorable dynamic presentations are a not-so-secret weapon in the business world. Do you have a powerful message that must be shared, but you haven't found a way to deliver that message? Do you want to be known as a top public speaker who gets amazing results? Are you ready to create and deliver your powerful message? Thomas Hides can help you create and deliver your speech to get the results you desire. Visit iconquality.com.
Did you expect your business to flourish, but instead it plateaued or didn't get off the ground yet? Would you like to achieve massive goals and discover new sources of income within your business? When you're ready to experience that type of success with fast results, Cindy Hendricks is the business coach for you. Her work with entrepreneurs and business owners has been life-changing. To get you and your business where you want to be, go to imaginemoresuccess.com.
Has the fear of public speaking stalled your business or personal life? What would you give to develop and maintain supreme confidence? Have an invaluable private program to always perform at your best. Imagine how you would feel. You can have all that and so much more today with Thomas Hyde's life-changing course called Number One Fear Unleashed. Visit numberonefear.com and be liberated from your fear of public speaking.
I am here with Stephen Bassett. We're talking disclosure. We're talking Unidentified, the program on the History Channel. And Stephen had gotten us to the point where the Unidentified program was an important way of telling lots of people about what has been going on in the UFO field, especially in the last 10 years. And we're moving toward episode 6. So pick up where you left off, Stephen. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but we had to do it.
No interruption. You got to get commercial. You got to pay the bills. Look, so a lot of people were going to be watching the Unidentified series with great interest. And, of course, I'm watching it from my perspective. And what I saw was that the threat concept, the threat meme, slowly increased with each episode. The reference to ETs as a threat, not a potential threat, virtually never, I don't know if they ever used the phrase potential threat, slowly increased. But in the early episodes, which were very good, it was okay, but nevertheless, it continued to be there. And then episode 6 turned up, and that was the disturbing. I guess you could say it was a watermark moment. It was a milestone in a sense. What they did in episode 6, and this may have been just a mistake. It may have just been they had an idea, they pursued it, and it was probably a big mistake, but they went ahead and aired it anyway. Is that they went all across the Pacific. I mean, they went all the way across the Atlantic to Italy and met with some researchers there who had their own thinking about the ET reality. But the focus clearly of this meeting was fundamentally an incident involving a helicopter, which the researchers there claimed was disabled and forced to land by an ET craft. This story is not strong. The evidence for it is not significant. And the explanations for what happened to that helicopter and the rotor that ultimately forced them to land could easily be associated by that rotor going through a flock of birds. It's extremely thin. And when you put that in context with the Nimitz event, the Nimitz case, which has profound evidence, extraordinary high-tech evidence, as well as pilots coming forward, it's even more ridiculous. But it got worse because in the interchange, the Italians are bringing up other things. One of the things they brought up was a mysterious set of fires that occurred in 2004, 2005, and 2014 in an Italian village called Caneto di Caronia that some researchers out there and some people involved in the ET issue decided was being generated by beams being sent into that village from some kind of ET base or from the ocean offshore.
So they're suggesting that the alien creatures, the alien beings, are setting fires in Italy?
Exactly, in this particular village. Now, in 2015, a man, his name, I don't have it, and his son, but the father primarily, was arrested. They had put up cameras when the fires turned up again in 2014. They had 40 instances where this man and his son were out trying to set these fires. And the guy was arrested. He was charged with a number of crimes, and he was convicted. I don't know about the son. I found this on the internet in 10 minutes. So this was, and more importantly, they did not challenge these statements. They did not challenge these issues online. And then the entire show had a dark, ominous tone to it. Every aspect of it was designed to give you a sense that, wow, ETs are a threat. They're taking down an aircraft. They took down a helicopter. And what's so ridiculous is that in the show itself, Louis Elizondo actually stated that he, in his entire time working on this issue at the Pentagon, had never heard of an instance where an ET craft had, quote, taken down an airplane or forced it to land or done anything to an airplane while he was there. Of course, we know about times that ETs have how would you say, turned off the electrical systems of planes that were threatening them. The Iran case is very well known. And then the plane would recover after it had fallen a bit. But in terms of directly damaging his planes, no. And yet they're sitting there just listening to this with great intensity. This was a huge mistake, and I had to address it. And the point is this. If, in fact, this threat theme continues and escalates, then we have a serious problem on our hands. Because that it will support, possibly even justifiably support, one of the concerns that a number of people in the field have is that there is a significant ulterior agenda by the military intelligence complex to finally make the decision to promote the threat of extraterrestrials to the public, to the journalists, and to the politicians, and as a result, justify massive military expenditures in order to defend ourselves against these invading ETs, hundreds of billions of dollars, if not more. And that would be a really colossal mistake. But it gets worse, because at the time that this show aired, my sources had confirmed to me that they confirmed additional information to me on top of what I already knew, which was that for the last year or so, members of the Two Stars Academy have been meeting on the Hill with members of Congress, including committee chairs, high level. The pilots had been taken up there and talking to them. So they are essentially lobbying the Congress, I'm sure, regarding potential hearings, which I love it. I think it's fantastic. But they've been doing that. We don't know what they're bringing up in those meetings because that is not discussed. If it were discussed, then the meetings would not be private, and that would generate a lot of political problems for the people involved. But they're keeping the lid on it. Okay. However, I also learned that a briefing was given to the executive, that the pilots were present. Who else, if anybody else on the To the Stars team was there, I don't know. But Donald Trump was there. And so that confirmed to me that this meme is very likely, this threat meme may have been presented to the president at some point. Then you factor in the Space Force, and you put it all in, put a bow on it, and the potential here is extremely concerning. And so I put out the statement, part one of the TTSA's switch, or the trend in the TTSA's progress here with a heavy threat emphasis. And invited everybody to scrutinize, again, what they're doing and watch very carefully. Now, I'm about to put out a second article, which I could have done before, but I didn't. And this article is going to focus on Tom DeLonge.
Oh, Tom DeLonge.
That's right. And let me be clear. Let me restate again. I have been very supportive of the TTSAS, I'm sorry. And everything that it's been doing. And I've been supportive of Tom DeLonge. He's an unusual guy to be in the position he's in. However, I understand how that happened, and I think he done some wonderful things, and he is a spokesperson to the general public. It's all good. I've been very supportive of him. However, I was aware of comments that Tom had made in the lead up to the To the Stars Academy announcement on October 11th. He'd given some interviews. And then afterwards gave some interviews. Now, Tom is not, he's not an advanced educated guy. He has a high school degree that he barely got. Because he just didn't, he's a, very, he's very, how would you say it, ADDH kind of person, and doesn't sit still, and studying in school was not his strong suit. But oddly enough, he turned into an autodidact after he left school, and started studying and reading about those things that interested him, plus business, which allowed him to create numerous businesses and it's very successful rock band, sold 30 million records, and other projects. So he's a highly accomplished adult, but he is not a highly trained, highly educated individual like the members of the To the Stars Academy, who not only have the education, they have the word skills, and they have the discipline that comes with those kinds of jobs. And so it didn't surprise me that Tom was a little, how would you say, I don't know what's the word, careless maybe, but just a little expansive when talking about things, a little excited. But because of the trend in the Unidentified series and the episode 6, I decided I needed to address those earlier comments. Now, there have been compilations of Tom's statements, particularly some of the early ones that have been done on the net. And I can give you a sense of some of these right now, some of these earlier quotes. And again, the context is limited. I can't give you full context. These interviews are available. I will have links to them when I put out my statement to my list and the blog. But just to give you a taste, referring to World War II. World War II on, it has been described, this is Tom's quote, by some working in the alphabet soup agencies. To me, in the last decades, that World War I was an ET war executed through humans. I do know that.
Oh, now, you said World War I or World War II? World
War I.
Okay.
Now, 1 minute. I think he's actually referring to both. The grammar is a little off, but it's World War II on. It has been described by some working in the alphabet agencies to me in the last decades that World War I was an ET war executed through humans. Now, again, let me also add some context here. It's very important.
Well, let's add the context in just a moment here because we're going to have to take our final break. Don't have any choice there. I'm here with Stephen Bassett. He of the Paradigm Research Group, and you can find it at www.paradigmresearchgroup.org. My blog is www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com, and when Steve gets his Tom DeLonge article up, I'll link to it as well on my blog so that you can read all of this stuff for yourself, because I think it's important when you're studying this is not just look for confirming data, but look at all sides of it so you can make an intelligent decision of exactly what was going on. So we will be back with the final segment in just a moment, talking about the last episode of Unidentified. So stick around.
If you are looking for a safe, zero-calorie natural option to the harmful artificial sweeteners on the market today, Just Like Sugar is what you're looking for. Just Like Sugar is a wonderful natural alternative for those health-conscious people who choose a calorie-restricted diet with a great, pure, sweet flavor that tastes just like sugar. Just Like Sugar is a great natural option for people suffering from diabetes and may be useful in restricted diet programs where standard sugars are not allowed and does not cause a laxative effect of some other sweeteners. Just Like Sugar comprises a perfect blend of chicory root fiber, natural calcium, natural vitamin C, and Just Like Sugar's sweetness comes from the natural flavors from the peel of the orange. Just Like Sugar is a natural alternative to harmful artificial sweeteners and will change the way that you believe all natural sweetener products taste. Just Like Sugar is available at your local Whole Foods markets, Wild Oats markets, Henry's, Sun Harvest, and many other fine natural food stores in the U.S., Canada, and worldwide. They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Eli Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Stephen Bassett is with me here on A Different Perspective. We're talking about basically the To the Stars Academy and the last episode of Unidentified and some of the problems that arose in that and some of the problems that some of the things that Tom DeLonge had said. For example, the World War I was basically an ET war fought by, I guess, human analogs, that sort of thing. So, Stephen, that's where we left off. Run with it.
Yeah, let me preface. I'm going to give you some more quotes, but let me preface this. It's very important. Tom DeLonge first talked about this coming program without naming it. This was on March 27th, 2016, on a 4-hour interview with George Knapp, which, again, I'll have a link to that. You can also find it simply by Googling for it. And in that interview, he made it clear that he had been drawn into a collaboration with members inside the Pentagon, CIA, and others, high-level people, to create something. And it was going to be a sort of a multimedia thing. There are going to be books involved and what have you. And he had been meeting with them. And one of the most important statements he made was that the Pentagon had literally set up a 10-person advisory team to give him information that would eventually be released as part of this program. I mean, this is heavy stuff. Obviously, a limited number of people saw this interview. It didn't get a lot of exposure. It didn't get media coverage. But I heard it, and it was very significant to me. So he's getting information from this advisory team. And so when I read these quotes, understand that there is every reason to think that these quotes are based upon the information he was being provided by these individuals inside the Pentagon and CIA and other agencies. And that's important. It's possible that some of this is Tom's own views that he's developed by reading books, and he's read tons of them, including a book by a gentleman, a.k.a. William Bramley, called The Gods of Eden, because a lot of this comes right out of The Gods of Eden. All right, so with that in mind, let me start with some of these quotes. The first one, I'll repeat it. World War II on, it has been described by some working in the alphabet soup agencies to me in the last decades that World War I was an ET war executed through humans. I do know that. I do know. Another quote. The alien presence is an existential risk, meaning life is not guaranteed for humans. And an extinction event could be triggered by unfriendly aliens to deliberately wipe out Homo sapiens sapiens. So now it is crucial time for humanity to learn that we are not alone in this universe and that friendly and unfriendly others have been interacting with this planet for millions of years. Okay. Let me go back down here. All right.
Well, couldn't you say, I mean, they're talking about a threat, but even if we just go back to the beginning of the modern era of 1947, there's been 72 years going on there, and the threat really hasn't developed. Aren't they kind of overstating a case here?
Look, I don't want to debate, to be honest with you, the issue per se. We don't have the time. Threat versus non-threat. This is something that we're going to have to assess and come to get a handle on. I'm simply pointing out that this kind of thinking, these kinds of ideas, may very well have been imparted to him by individuals setting this program up inside the government, right? And so they may reflect this internal thinking, which wouldn't surprise a lot of people. But now we're in an open disclosure process involving former members of the military intelligence complex. Let me go with this one. There's a very, very strong link between what people think demons are from the Bible and other religions and the UFO phenomenon. What you have is something that doesn't like man and either feels jealous of or has some kind of plan for whom man is to be. That just makes it much worse when you think about it. Now, this is pretty dire language. I think we can agree. Let me see if I can. There's another one here I wanted to. For the technology, see others, secrets uncover. All right, I will be, providing a lot more extensive quotes, but there are a number of quotes that essentially are saying that ETs have manipulated humans, they've created wars between humans, and so forth. Now, let's talk about Ancient Aliens for a second. Ancient Aliens is this show, which is in its 14th season, has gone to extraordinary lengths to try to examine the history of potential ET contact going back thousands of years. And it has raised a huge amount of questions. And as you go back in time, there is evidence that can't be totally dismissed that ETs were not so nice. And that is possible. So the idea of ETs not being nice in the ancient past cannot be dismissed. And if they weren't nice then, they may not be nice now. So I don't want to act like I'm not some utopian Pollyannish guy who thinks that the ETs are all wonderful. No. But this is 2019, not 4000 BC. And the ETs that are engaging us now, we know a great deal about. And so we have to be really careful that the current presence is cast properly and that it is properly presented to the American people. And there is no effort to manipulate the truth that we do know about these ETs into a classic human modality, which is war as politics by other means. We can't go there. If we do, it's disastrous. And just a couple of reasons why that is true. One, and one of the witnesses, I think it was Daniel Day, Mr. Day, who was one on Princeton, actually said this in one of the episodes. If the ETs are really a true threat, we haven't got a chance. I'm paraphrasing, which is true. If the ETs are an absolute existential threat, we have no chance. And now people can argue that all day long, fine. But if you understand physics and you understand the technology level of the human race right now, we would have absolutely no chance whatsoever.
Well, I think science fiction writers have explored this a number of times, saying that if you're an ET invader, all you have to do is stand back and throw rocks at the Earth. You don't even have to have weapons.
There's so many ways they can destroy us without even breaking a sweat. And so if we are intact, if we are not facing an existential threat, it could only be because an alliance of extraterrestrials, and there are a number of groups engaging us right now, has the power to protect us from the Borg, the ultimate threatening race of cyborgs in Star Trek. And so that just gives you a glimpse of the level of significance all of this has.
But your argument was that the last episode of Unidentified moved us into this from some sort of a potential threat into a very real threat. Is that
by going to the extreme to go all the way to Italy in order to bring to us through the History Channel this ridiculous episode involving a helicopter? For those of us who understand the history of this issue and know the history of the issue, to the general public, it would have been wow. To us, it's like, are you kidding? This is ridiculous. This is an insult to our intelligence. So that they would make that mistake concerns me. But it may have just been a mistake. They just didn't think it through. But they went, and then they had another decision to make, was whether to put it on air. Now, maybe History Channel was there. I don't know that made that decision. But clearly, it was the most concerning thing that has happened in the entire 2 years that the To the Stars Academy has been with us. And it invites extraordinary scrutiny, which includes going back and reviewing Tom DeLonge's comments in these earlier interviews. And I'm only touching the surface here. There have been a lot. Now, it's also, I have to add that information has come to my attention. Somebody has scrutinized a recent filing by the To the Stars Academy. This is a financial filing that seems to indicate some board changes are in the works and that Tom may very well soon be replaced by another CEO. And what his role would be after that, I don't know. This would be a logical transition. We'll see. That's not intended as a criticism. And in fact, it could be, or nor a negative thing necessarily. But change is underway, which I fully expected. So again, this massive program, this extraordinary program, deserves the complete attention of everybody with a computer, because nothing has probably, other than a nuclear war, nothing has potentially greater impact on our future in this planet and in our country than the outcome of this initiative and disclosure.
Well, we're going to have to leave it right there, Steve.
Yeah.
And it's a good place to wrap up, I think. Let me thank you for taking time again to talk to us about this sort of thing. And probably as the situation develops, we'll probably have you back to fill us in a little bit more. You can take a look at his website, which is www.paradigmresearchgroup.org. I'll have more information at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com. Stephen, thank you very much.
As always, Kevin, and I'm sure I'll be back soon because the developments are happening very quickly.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
And once again, next week I will be talking with Don Schmidt. We're going to be talking about things Roswellian. Following up that, I'll have Alejandro Rojas on the program, again talking about these sorts of activities that Steve and I just talked about. And finally, I'll have Kathleen Martin talking about the Barney and Betty Hill case. Her perspective of it as the niece of Betty Hill and some of the things that have developed recently in abduction research, which are sort of interesting as well. I will have further notes on this, as I say, at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com. And if you have a chance, take a look at XZBN, the X Zone Broadcast Network.net. And there's some fine programs dealing with the paranormal, so you can find things that will be interesting to you there. I will be back in 167 hours with Don Schmidt, so take a look for us at that time. Thank you.
And music.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com. or www.xzonetvchannel.com, or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.